Hi, Lake Highlands area moms and more against racism. Happy Black History Month. This year, more than ever, it's important that we are being very intentional about raising up, lifting up stories of the amazing African American community from the generations past that have helped build and shape our nation. And we've got so many great stories of heroes and sheroes from Black culture that everyone can be inspired by. So this is a month to really be intentional about it. We've got a YouTube playlist that's got lots of short stories, and we're adding to it every day. We've got Girl Scouts adding to it. Hey, Amanda. We've got teenagers adding to it, and some of our moderators and library team. So if you have a book at home and you want to add it to our YouTube playlist, would love for you to do that. Just let me know and send it to me. Or if you want to borrow one of our books and use it at home and read it, would love to add you to the YouTube playlist. I'll put it here, and then I want you to think about using that with your kids at home after dinner, sitting down, maybe snack time, lunchtime, over the weekend. Make sure you're sharing so many of these awesome stories. This is one of my favorites, and I'm excited to share it with you. It's one I've done with my Girl Scouts before. I'm going to use a drum, and when you show it with your kids, if you want to use a drum, you can, because it's got a great little pattern in it. Step, stomp, stride, beaten down butt, filled with pride. Step, stomp, stride, beaten down butt, filled with pride. And I didn't know a lot about Sojourner Truth before we studied her with the Girl Scouts. Such a strong woman. She was big. She was Black. She was so beautiful. Her name was Sojourner. Truth be told, she was meant for great things, meant for speaking, meant for preaching, meant for teaching the truth about freedom. Big, Black, beautiful, true. That was Sojourner. Hi, Miss Penny. And then we like to say together, and your little kids might want to dance to it. Step, stomp, stride, beaten down but full of pride. Sojourner was born a slave. Her master named her Isabella. Sojourner's mother, Mama Bet, and her father, James Baumfree, took a first look at their child and decided to call her Belle. Seems her newborn's cry was ringing in good news. Nothing quiet about that girl. Belle grew quickly. She was almost 6 feet tall while still a child. Along with her size 12 feet, she had hands like hams, lots of muscles on her bones too, and no one dared pick a bone with Belle. She could plow, hoist, and haul better than any child her age. With her big soled shoes, she could stomp the beetles that tried to eat her master's corn. Step, stomp, stride, beaten down but filled with pride. She's having to work really hard as a slave, and here is the hardest part, one of the hardest parts of the story. Belle's strength and size made her valuable. She wasn't valued about anything in her heart or her character. Her slave master valued her for her strength and her ability to get lots of work done, because it helped him to get more money from the work she did in the fields. She was sold away from her parents when she was 9 years old, and to 2 more masters after that. This was the ugly way of slavery. Belle hated being treated as property, and she hated shucking, boiling, hauling, and working all day for her master, John Dumont. John Dumont knew how strong and capable Belle was. He promised to free her if she worked extra hard for him. Belle wanted her freedom more than anything, so she stepped to it. She worked hard for many years. She polished Dumont's brass until it gleamed. She mucked his horse stalls. She churned the Dumont family butter twice as fast. Step, stomp, stride, beaten down but full of pride. There she is, shining a mirror which she may have never even seen before. And there's her reflection. Finally, Belle went to John Dumont, ready to be freed. But John did not honor his promise. That's something that happened a lot with enslaved people. That's when Belle decided to run away. In search of freedom, Belle ran. She fled like tomorrow wasn't ever gonna come. She covered some ground, child. She got gone. She refused to stop until she saw hope. Belle ran right up to Hope's front door. She came to a farm owned by a Quaker couple, Isaac and Maria. The Quakers were abolitionists. So all throughout the history of unfair things being done to people and people being enslaved like Belle, there have been people of all colors that stand up and say, no, that is not right. And abolitionists were some of those people. They believed in freedom for all people. Isaac and Maria offered Belle shelter. When Belle's master, John Dumont, caught up with her, Isaac offered to buy Belle's services. It wasn't Belle's work that he wanted to free her. Belle's master took the money from Isaac. Then he got gone. Right then, Isaac freed Belle. And even though Belle didn't have to run anymore, she set out on her own. She is so brave and so tall. She went to New York City where she could be truly free. And oh, was that freedom ever sweet. Freedom made Belle want to take the heels off her size 12s and kick them up high. Belle celebrated her freedom by marching her feet straight to a job. She worked as a maid who made money for the work she did. No more master, no more cotton to bale, beetles to stomp, or corn to shuck. So when she was enslaved, she did all that work and didn't get any money to pay for it. Now she's getting a job because she's a free person and she's gonna get paid for her work. Belle soon learned that to celebrate freedom, she had to speak her beliefs. For her, freedom meant helping others. Yeah. Freedom meant putting her foot down for what she knew was right. Freedom meant she would travel up and down the land to share her ideas. That's when she changed her name. She gave her slave name the Boot and called herself Sojourner Truth. She said the name Sojourner was just right for someone who was a traveler, and truth, well, that was what Sojourner did best. She told it like it was. Sojourner couldn't read or write, but she sure could speak her mind, and now she was free to go wherever she wanted to find folks who could help spread the word about freedom. She met many abolitionists, men and women, who spoke out against slavery. In her travels, Sojourner made a friend named Olive Gilbert. Olive was an abolitionist. She read the Bible to Sojourner. Sojourner memorized every word in that good book. She could recite the entire Bible. Sojourner told Olive all about her childhood as a slave, and Olive wrote down the story. So in 1850, the story of Sojourner Truth, a Northern slave, was published. And this was important because it showed people what kind of awful stuff happened when you were enslaved. Sojourner carried her book with her everywhere. She spoke about the unfair treatment of Black people and women. When Sojourner preached, she let her words fly. Free is the highest dove in the sky. Free is the sky itself. Sojourner's voice was packed with power. As she traveled, she learned even more about the meaning of freedom. She found that freedom is not a place. Freedom is the fire that burns inside. And Sojourner Truth, she was full of fire. Once, when Sojourner was scheduled to speak at a rally, someone threatened to burn down the building. That didn't stop Sojourner. She said, "I will speak upon its ashes. Step, stomp, stride, beaten down but full of pride." There she goes, stepping and stomping. In 1851, she step-stomped to a women's rights convention in Ohio. There was no rain on the day of that convention, but oh, was there thunder. What struck that spot was strong and loud. It was Sojourner's step-stomp pride. There weren't any big, black, beautiful preachers in that church. Yet the main question was, should women have the same rights as men? And you can bet the men at the meeting had something to say about that. Most of the men were ministers. Like Sojourner, they knew all the words in the Bible, and same as Sojourner, these men were following their own strides. One minister said that men should have superior rights and privileges because men were smarter than women. That's a lie that's not true either. Just like the big lie about skin color, that this kind of white skin color makes me better or smarter or more valuable than someone that has a different skin color or dark skin color. That is a big lie. That is the big lie that was made up in our country so that people like Sojourner would be enslaved. But she knows it's a lie, and she's telling the truth against that big lie. The next man to speak said men should be allowed to boss women around because Jesus had been a man and that God wanted men to rule the world. Then came two more speakers. The first one opened his Bible and said that women were lower than men because in the Garden of Eden, Eve had given into the serpent and had eaten the apple of temptation. This minister's friend said that women were too weak to deserve equal rights because they needed men to hold open doors for them, help them into carriages and puddles. I see Sojourner. What's she going to do? Well, that was enough for Sojourner. She stood up. She stepped from the back of that church to the front. She stormed past the stupidity of the men who had just spoken. Sojourner put one big, black, beautiful foot in front of the other, and she stomped on the floorboards of ignorance that were underneath. To her, the arguments made by the men were the beetles from her past. She couldn't wait to stomp, stomp, stomp all over them. Here she goes. Sojourner took each man's belief and slammed it down like a nail. Her fist struck a hammer's blow to the podium. Bam! She said, "You say women need to be helped into carriages and lifted over ditches? Nobody ever helps me into carriages. And ain't I a woman?" Bam! Down came Sojourner's hand, an iron fist smashing the lies of the day. Bam! Bam! "Look at me," Sojourner went on. "I have plowed, and I have planted, and I have gathered into barns. No man could head me, and ain't I a woman?" Now Sojourner was ready to preach her beliefs about what the Bible meant to her. She spoke to the man who told of God's will. "Where did your Christ come from?" she asked. "From God and a woman. Man had nothing to do with him." She is so brave. Then Sojourner talked about Eve and the apple in the Garden of Eden. She said, if the first woman God ever made was strong enough to turn the world upside down all alone, then women ought to be able to turn it back and get it right side up again. Down came her fists, both of them. Bam, bam. When Sojourner was done, she told the congregation, now old Sojourner hasn't got nothing more to say. And that is a famous speech she gave. And that was the truth. Sojourner had spoken the honest to goodness. She was ready to step, and step she did. Her size 12s hit their stride. Off she walked. Big, black, beautiful, true. That was Sojourner. Wow. And that's a real picture of her with Abraham Lincoln. That's amazing. And here's another famous picture of her. She lived to be 86 years old, and she continued preaching and giving speeches all over the country for women's rights and for the rights of Black Americans to be free. Thanks for reading that book with me. Step, stomp, stride, beaten down, but filled with pride. So I love that because sometimes we feel beaten down, but when we stand up straight and step like Sojourner, follow in her big footsteps, we can be filled with pride. That's what Black History Month is about, is sharing that pride, not just with the children in our lives of dark skin, of people of color, which is super, super important that they feel that pride. This is the sign for pride. But also with everyone, we have so much to be proud of, and anyone, no matter what color your skin, can get inspiration from amazing people like Sojourner. And it's just so important to learn this history. So if you want to add a book to our YouTube list for Black History Month, let me know. I've got one you can borrow, or you can make a recording from home. And we'll be adding more and more every day and having different readers every day. Thanks, everybody. Happy Black History Month. Bye-bye. Make good trouble.